London, England, early 17th century. In the early 1600s, London was not yet the global capital people imagine today. It was loud, crowded, unevenly built, and growing faster than anyone could control. At the start of the century, London's population was approaching 200,000 people, making it one of the largest cities in Europe. Most lived packed tightly within medieval walls that had never been designed for a city of this size. The result was a place defined by closeness. Streets were narrow, buildings leaned inward, light struggled to reach the ground. London was expanding, but it was doing so without a plan. By 1600, London was already centuries old. Roman foundations lay buried beneath medieval stone. Timber-framed houses stood on streets that followed routes first laid out by the Romans. Nothing was uniform, nothing was symmetrical. The city grew outward not by design, but by necessity. Homes were added wherever space allowed. Entire neighborhoods appeared beyond the old walls, technically illegal but tolerated because the city had nowhere else to go. This unplanned growth would define London's character for the next 100 years. Most Londoners lived close to where they worked. Markets were everywhere, open air, crowded and noisy. Food was sold quickly because storage was limited and spoilage was common. Clean water was not guaranteed, and waste often flowed directly into the Thames. The river was the city's main artery. It carried people, goods, animals, and refuse. It connected London to the rest of the world, but it also spread disease. Despite this, the Thames was essential. Without it, the city could not function. Houses in 1600s London were typically narrow and tall. Land was valuable, so buildings rose upward rather than outward. Upper floors often extended over the street, creating dark passageways below. From above, neighbors could nearly touch hands across the road. Inside, homes were cramped. Families shared small spaces. Privacy was rare. Fireplaces burned constantly, filling rooms with smoke. Open flames were everywhere. This made fire a constant threat, one most people accepted as unavoidable. London was already a city of extremes. Merchants and craftsmen could build comfortable lives near the center of trade. At the same time, poverty was widespread. Thousands lived in overcrowded districts with little sanitation or protection. Begging was common, so was crime. The city responded with harsh laws, public punishments, and crowded prisons. Order was enforced publicly, often brutally, as a warning to others. London functioned because it had to, not because it was well managed. In the early 1600s, London stood at a crossroads. Trade was increasing. England's influence was growing. New ideas were entering the city through books, ships, and conversation. But the city itself remained fragile. Disease spread quickly, fires were frequent, infrastructure lagged behind population growth. London was becoming important faster than it was becoming safe. By the middle of the century, this fragile balance would break. And when it did, London would be forced to rebuild, not just its buildings, but the way a city could exist at all. London, England, late 17th century. By the middle of the 1600s, the weaknesses of London's growth were no longer abstract. They became impossible to ignore. The city's population continued to rise, but its streets, housing, and sanitation remained largely unchanged. What had once been an inconvenience now became a danger. And in 1665, that danger arrived. The Great Plague of London was not the first outbreak the city had experienced, but it was the last and the most devastating. Carried by fleas and rats that thrived in overcrowded neighborhoods, the disease spread rapidly through narrow streets and tightly packed homes. Entire households were infected within days. Shops closed, markets emptied, public gatherings were banned. Red crosses appeared on doors, marking infected homes. Families were sealed inside, watched by guards, left to survive or not on their own. The city did not collapse in one moment. It slowly withdrew from itself. Despite the fear, London could not fully stop. Food still had to be delivered, the river still carried goods. Essential trades continued under constant risk. The wealthy fled to the countryside. The poor stayed behind. By the end of the outbreak, tens of thousands were dead. Entire neighborhoods were scarred by loss. London survived, but barely. And it was about to face something even worse. In September 1666, less than a year after the plague subsided, a small fire broke out in a bakery on Pudding Lane. At first, it seemed manageable. But London was dry, houses were built of timber, streets were narrow, wind pushed flames from roof to roof faster than people could respond. Within hours, the fire was out of control. For 4 days, it burned. People fled with what they could carry. Homes collapsed, churches fell, entire districts vanished into smoke. The medieval city, built slowly over centuries, was erased in days. By the time the fire ended, most of central London was gone. St. Paul's Cathedral lay in ruins, markets were ash, streets no longer existed. Yet in the destruction, something rare occurred. London was given a chance to start again. For the first time, London could be planned. New building regulations were introduced, timber construction was restricted, brick and stone became standard, streets were widened, fire breaks were considered. The city did not become modern overnight, but it became safer. This rebuilding marked a turning point. London began to transform from a medieval city, reacting to crisis, into an early modern city learning from it. By the late 1600s, London was no longer just growing, it was organizing. Trade expanded, institutions strengthened, the city became a center of finance, publishing, and global exchange. The river was still crowded, streets were still busy. But the city had learned something essential. Growth without structure came at a cost. London's survival depended not just on size, but on resilience. The London of the 1600s no longer exists physically. Its wooden houses burned. Its narrow streets were rebuilt. Its vulnerabilities were exposed and addressed. But its influence remains. Modern London was shaped by the disasters of that century. Fire codes, urban planning, public health, all trace their roots back to lessons learned the hard way. The city did not become great because it avoided collapse. It became great because it endured it. London in the 1600s was a city caught between eras. Too large for medieval systems. Too fragile for unchecked growth. Too important to be allowed to fail. Plague and fire forced London to confront its limits, and in doing so, reshaped its future. What emerged was not perfection, but permanence. A city rebuilt with memory. If you want more calm, detailed history documentaries exploring how cities formed, failed, and rebuilt themselves over time, consider subscribing. Because the modern world is built on decisions made long before electricity, steel, or concrete ever existed.